Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on how to run your very own nurse, puppy, and kitten clinic. So, one of the first things to note about running a puppy and kitten clinic is knowing about something called the socialization period. Puppies and kittens need to be exposed to a variety of people, animals, and environments to develop good social skills. A puppy and kitten class may include supervised playtime with other pets, introduction to new people, and exposure to different sounds and smells. The socialization period in your companion animal is the time when they are most open to learning about their environment, their littermates, their mother and other animals of their species, about humans, and providing diverse positive experience can prevent the development of fearful responses and subsequent behavioural problem. There is what we call early socialization, which is about 3 to 8 weeks, and critical socialization, which happens at about 8 to 16 weeks. And then there is the sensitive socialization period. A sensitive period is when animals benefit from exposure to a range of stimuli. They show high willingness to explore and play, and show little fear when encountering new animals, people, objects, or experiences. Deprived of exposure to people, animals, and situations, they may have an increased risk of developing into adults who have problems with fear, anxiety, and aggression. So when we consider this socialization period, we know that puppies are most responsive to learning from exposure to unfamiliar dogs, especially between the ages of 3 to 14 weeks. Early socialization is highly desirable. If it does not occur until 5 weeks of age, puppies can be wary on first presentation, and by 7 weeks of age, they will actively avoid handling. By 8 to 9 weeks, puppies are neurologically developed and ready to explore new environments. And there is data out there that show if these puppies are not socialized by 14 weeks of age, there are behavioral impacts and they may be forever fearful in situations and reactive among unfamiliar people, pets, or in environments outside of the house. Kittens also have a socialization period and sensitive period. So the sensitive period for cats begins at 3 weeks of age, but their receptivity to new experience wanes earlier than that for puppies. To obtain maximum benefit from early exposure, kittens need to be exposed to people, other animals, and novel environments by 9 weeks of age. In general, kittens benefit from early exposure to family members, other pets, visitors, grooming, veterinary visits, and other life experiences. So this must be discussed in detail when you do see your new puppies and kittens when you want to check them over for the clinic. We do have some challenges with socializations which may come up in the clinics when you speak to the owners. So socialization often begins after the puppy and kitten is weaned from the litter and is adopted out. 3 to 4 weeks of age for kittens and 3 to 5 weeks of age for puppies is ideal. Now, generally, puppies and kittens should remain with litter until at least 8 weeks of age, but we do know that there are some struggles in the UAE where puppies and kittens are often rehomed much too early, and the socialization often begins after the puppy or kitten is weaned from the litter and adopted. As we know, 3 to 4 weeks of age for kittens and 3 to 5 weeks of age for puppies is ideal for their socialization period to begin. But if they have already been adopted out and they haven't had enough time to be with their litter mates and their mother, this is a problem. They are often placed in a new home during or after the peak of their sensitive period. And so this transition should be carefully managed, and it's not commonly managed well, unfortunately, sometimes when we do see animals that have been rehomed too early. We should avoid contact with animals of unknown temperament, health or vaccination status, or surfaces that may harbour disease vectors. Another challenge that you may come across when you're talking to these owners about their ability to socialise their puppy and kittens. So what you can actually do is have something called a puppy and kitten class. So during appropriate exposure, puppies and kittens will be comfortable and show no signs of anxiety or struggle when being handled or when meeting unfamiliar, friendly people and dogs. Fearful or shy puppies and kittens should be allowed to experience the world at their own speed, with every social encounter reinforced with biological rewards such as food and play. With continued exposure to people, places and things, many will continue to adapt to the behaviour beyond that age of 20 weeks. So you want to Start your puppy and kitten classes as close to 8 weeks of age as possible. All puppies and kittens in the class should have received their initial vaccines or immunization and be free of signs of illness. So that's why having to do it as close to 8 weeks of age as possible is really important, because at that age they should have at least have had one vaccine. Owners are taught how to perform the various exercises, shown how to practice appropriate handling and inter-puppy and kitten interactions in this puppy and kitten class. So that's what you will be trying to show owners. It's very important that the puppies and kittens gain positive exposure to diverse people of different genders, ethnicities, ages and sizes. So try to have a variety of staff present. Maybe you have male or female receptionists of different backgrounds, so that the puppies and kittens are exposed quite early. It's important that puppies and kittens gain positive exposure to these diverse people, genders, ethnicities, etc. And exposure to traffic, various surfaces, including concrete, metal, carpet, sand, etc., will also help with them being more comfortable within that environment from an early age. So when you want to expose them to different environments for puppy, this includes working to leash train the puppy to follow an on-leash activities. Avoid areas with high likelihood of unvaccinated dogs, such as parks and grassy areas that dogs frequent. So having them within the clinic on a nice sanitized flooring would be very important for this, instead of having to lead train them outside where they may not be fully vaccinated and they could have exposure to pathogens living outside. Some of the activities that you can spread them across a few weeks. So in the first week, you may want to do gentle handling by multiple people, and combining practices coming back when they're called. You might want to manipulate their feet and their hands, let's say, or claws in this case, and get them used to gentle grooming. You might want to play a variety of toys with them in these classes as well. And then you can do things like place them on examination tables, give lots of treats always to reinforce that positive experience. And just try to see how, if they let you examine them, lift their tail, look in their ears, these kind of things to get them used to being exposed to different environments and different experiences. Now, tips for success: exposures to members of their own species to interact with who are normal, friendly and outgoing. So make sure when they're in the puppy and kitten classes that the other puppies and kittens are in a good temperament and they're having a very positive experience with those other animals. We want to ensure exposure to both familiar and unfamiliar people so that they learn to actively investigate or solicit attention from people rather than avoiding them or struggling. So have someone go with them who they're very comfortable with, and then maybe have a few other people that they've never met before come in and out the room and make it a positive experience. Maybe they can give them treats or give them play. They should also receive individual human handling away from their litter mates on a daily basis, where they are gently held and encouraged to assume various positions that will facilitate grooming and examination and activities such as being placed in a carrier. These are things that they can do at home, so you can advise the owners to try and continue this in their socialization period. And they should always be provided with toys of different textures in order to encourage play. And on a daily basis, they should be exposed to a variety of objects, litter material of their cat, and different surfaces in order to encourage enjoyable exploration, which is what we want. And socialization opportunities should continue to be provided for the first 9 to 12 months of life. So even outside of that window, you need to continue to keep them socialized to encourage a positive outcome as they grow older. Make sure all the interactions are supervised, and any overly exuberant animals, maybe you can separate a little bit, and to not help induce any fear or anxiety from the other dogs or cats in there as well. So in summary, social exposure should begin at 3 to 4 weeks of age for kittens and 3 to 5 weeks of age for puppies. Social interaction should continue to be reinforced throughout the animal's life as necessary to support good temperament. Non-threatening, ideally positive experience with multiple animals and people is very, very important in these classes. Puppy or kitten socialization classes should be encouraged to play and provided with toys and different surfaces and textures. Kittens do best when worked with by 9 weeks of age and puppies by 12 to 14 weeks of age, but of course, earlier is always better. And gentle handling and encouragement will facilitate grooming and examination and activities such as being placed in a carrier. So this is all to prepare them for later on when they have to come back into the clinic, whether for neutering or procedures or vaccinations. We want to almost desensitize them to these kind of experiences and make it positive so that there isn't a struggle later on. Kitten training is something that you may have to give advice on to the owners as well, because this is often overlooked, but it is very possible. So one thing to note is that cats are not like dogs. So dogs are pack animals who want to please their owner, which could be the client that you're seeing or yourself. And your kitten or the kittens are more interested in pleasing themselves. The first thing is to realise is that cats do not understand punishment. Encouraging good behaviour is much more effective. So there are 3 R's when dealing with kittens, which is respect, reinforcement and rewards. And this can go towards dogs as well. So when you have respect with your kittens, always behave in a cat-friendly manner when that's respect to their resources and having them placed in the way that they would like, with lots of easy access and in multiple number, and also cat-friendly handling, so not too much rough play and obviously not forcing them to be held or environment when they're not comfortable. Reinforcement is consistency and repetition. Encourage behaviours you like and firmly and gently say no to behaviours you do not. And reward, praise from you and a tasty treat, both are very motivating to a kitten. Don't tease with hands or play games that encourage play biting at all. When these owners do come in for a kitten clinic, let's say, there should be a checklist that you go through with them to ensure that they have, and these are called the essentials. So what goes in must come out is the best way to think of it when you think of what they need for toileting and eating and, you know, day-to-day use. So there will be food, dry and wet, ideally for cats, treats, food and water bowls, and then of course they need to have a litter box, cat litter, of course, if they're indoor cats, and ideally a scoop to help, you know, remove feces and things from the litter. You would also like to encourage the owners to make sure they have some place where the cats can sleep, play, repeat. So at least one bed, whether they choose to use it or not is up to the cat, and often they won't, but some do like to have their own resting areas if you do provide them. Toys, there's many types of toys that you can get, wands, crinkle balls, stuffed toys. Scratches are very important for cats to exhibit their natural behaviours. So scratching posts, whether they're vertical ones, or you can get scratching mats, which are horizontal, some cats prefer. And of course trees, because cats like to be able to climb, be high and have different vantage points. So these are things that you need to suggest to the owners that they must have when they have any new kitten to ensure that they have environmental enrichment for these cats. And then of course for health and wellness, they will need a cat carrier at some point. And then they can consider things like having nail clippers and brushes and combs for grooming, and then medications, which you can discuss with them afterwards. Puppies have a slightly different checklist. So there are a few essentials for our puppies. Usually, at least, they need a dog bed, and they are quite receptive to having a dog bed as well. Most dogs will have some form of collar and a lead in order to take them for walks and have a little bit of control as well. It is a requirement in UAE for them to have an ID tag. So make sure that they have this as well once they are microchipped and vaccinated. You may want to have poop bags available for them for when they start taking their dogs for walks. And of course, nutrition, same with cats, they need food, treats and water bowls. And of course, a food bowl. And then you may want to have some grooming stuff. Dogs, a lot of the time, not all, but a lot of dogs are very receptive to play. So having a variety of types of toys, whether they're chew toys or toys to play fetch, such as frisbees or safe tennis balls, will go a long way. And things like Kongs, which are another type of chew material, will be very, very helpful for your puppy when getting them settled in. Don't forget to educate on puppy training. Things like clicker training. This is really great for reinforcing good behavior. Essentially, when the dog does anything that you deem positive, you click and you give a treat, and they associate that behavior and the click with receiving a treat. So they respond very well to this aid, and they can link all the behaviors together. You have recall lead training as well. There are some leads that you can use that are slightly longer. So it's ideal for distance training in your dogs as they're growing up. Appropriate chew toys, and of course reward toys, which can be different to chew toys. Lots of dogs respond differently to a reward or chew toy. Sometimes they like stuffed toys as their reward instead. Not all dogs will respond to actual food treats. So have an appropriate, or let's say a variety of rewards for dogs for their preference. When you're house training your puppies, keep in mind it's very important that punishment does not usually have the desired effect. Things like scolding or rubbing a puppy's nose in their mess or feces will only scare or confuse them. A better method of housebreaking a puppy is to reward with praise, treats, playtime, when they do actually relieve themselves in the right place as indicated. And of course, a crate can also be helpful for a housebreaking tool. One of the keys to having a good house training for your puppy is to have a regular schedule. Feed at similar times each day, and take outside to toilet every time they eat, drink, or wake from a nap. So regular toilet breaks, whether that's going outside or maybe you have a puppy pad that you can place them on if that is going to work for you. Punishment is not as effective as positive reinforcement, so you just need to reward the good behavior and ignore when they've made a mistake. And also, puppy pads are effective for creating repetition in appropriate soiling. They may not be ideal for everyone to have in the home, but they do go a long way in actually helping them have a little bit of repetition until they are able to actively go outside properly. Crate training really is about creating a safe haven. So you can also give this advice to some of your puppy owners as well. Crates can help prevent the puppy from developing bad habits like inappropriately chewing or soiling. Okay, but a puppy should not be put in a crate as a punishment. Okay, and they should not be kept in there for a few hours at a time. And you do need to build it up. And crate training should always be kept very positive. So they do not go in there for punishment. It is a positive experience to encourage them to want to go in there themselves as well. And you need to introduce the puppy to the crate very slowly and at their own pace. You could throw some treats in there, and then you can praise the puppy when they go in on their own. And you are supposed to leave the door open initially when you start crate training. And then as they continue to go into the crate, or you place them in the crate, you can eventually, the door can be closed for short periods of time. And that period of time can be slowly increased, obviously with giving rewards and treats as often as possible. It's important to place the crate initially in a central location and let the puppy explore it. Make it comfortable. So make sure it's got nice bedding in there, blankets, maybe even one of their favorite toys. Offer a treat and toy when they do go inside the crate to help them go in and teach tolerance by locking the toy inside the crate and the puppy out maybe, or locking some treats in there or a bone or something that they like. And then you can extend the crate time over a week or so. And here is an example of a very good potty and crate training schedule. So it's just a basic example, different timings, of course, they don't have to adhere to, but it's something that you can share with owners to give them an idea of how often they should be taking their puppies out to pee or defecate, and how they can do that around the feeding times as well. So then you can discuss with the owners, if they haven't already had this conversation with the doctors, about their vaccine schedules. So there's kitten and puppy vaccines, which are slightly different. And the best way to explain that to them is how vaccines can be divided into core vaccines and non-core vaccines. The core vaccines are considered essential for all cats, including indoor-only cats, because of the widespread and severe nature of the diseases being protected against. And non-core vaccines are only given to cats if there is a genuine risk of exposure to the infection and if vaccination would provide good protection. And this is quite similar to your dogs as well, with the example of being a little bit different of kennel cough vaccine. Maybe if they're going into boarding facilities or going to be socializing at the daycare center, that's another one that you could consider, because there may be genuine risk of exposure by the sheer number of animals in close proximity. When we discuss booster vaccinations as well, they may be only 1 to 3 years, depending on the vaccine, disease, and risk of the individual. And of course, they may change depending on the guidelines as set by the country. So in the UAE, it is regulated to have a rabies vaccination every year. And that might be different to other countries where the vaccine may be licensed for a lot longer, and only needed to be given every 3 years. So always go with the guidelines of the country that you are actually in, and explain that to the owners. They may be expatriate and come from somewhere where they didn't have to give vaccinations as regularly. And as you can see here, this is a typical vaccination schedule for dogs with your core and non-core vaccines mentioned. And it discusses the initial vaccines, and then also when the booster recommendations come in, and some additional comments. And this is a really helpful sheet to share with your owners. You can adapt this as per your UAE regulations to know what is actually recommended for this environment. And the same for cats. Owners may have had a different schedule, particularly if they're new to the region, where they may not have had to give some of the core vaccines every year, whereas in the UAE, a lot of these vaccines, such as your Kalichi virus or your panleukopenia vaccines, or what we like to call your cat flu vaccines, are to be given every year, as well as the rabies vaccine, whereas in other places it may be every 2 to 3 years. Microchipping is a UAE legal requirement. So a legal requirement by the Dubai municipality that cats and dogs are all microchipped, rabies vaccinated, and given registration tags. This is usually done at the time of their vaccination or when they are under anaesthetic for neutering. And that's a very ideal time to do it, because they can be microchipped as a kitten or an adult. Microchipping usually involves inserting a tiny implant under the skin, usually around the scruff of the neck. And of course, if the animal goes missing but then is found and is brought into the municipality's veterinary section, they should have a central database which will help them connect your pet's tag ID number and microchip number to contact details of the owner. So this is another thing that you need to give lots of information about to the owners, that this is a legal requirement. Even if they think they don't need to have it, that's what they have to do to have their animal registered in the UAE, by which point they could actually be fined. Especially dog owners walking their dogs without a municipality tag can actually be fined. Often owners aren't aware of all the protection from hazards in terms of safety. So when you talk about safety of their puppies and kittens, you need to explain to them how to keep their pets safe, both at home and in public. This may include information how to prevent accidents and how to prevent pets or protect pets from hazards like toxic plants and other dangerous substances. So having these kind of posters in the clinic or in the room or as a handout will be really helpful for them, because a lot of the time they're unaware that they have a lot of these things in a home, whether it's toxic plants or just common toxins such as chewing gum or some medications that they didn't deem dangerous. So when it comes to behavior issues, young pets may exhibit undesirable behaviors like biting, scratching, or chewing. And a trainer may be available to provide advice on how to discourage these behaviors and redirect the pet's attention to more appropriate activities. Not all owners will want to see a behaviorist, so what you can try and advise them is to have some sort of consistency and routine. Establishing a consistent routine and environment for their cat or dog can help prevent stress and anxiety, which can lead to behavior issues. Try to stick to a regular feeding, exercise and training schedule, and provide a safe and secure environment for them, especially for your dogs. And then we also have to think about their mental stimulation and how much exercise they do get. So regular exercise and mental stimulation can help prevent boredom, frustration, and destructive behavior, particularly in your dogs. You should provide them with toys, puzzles, and activities that challenge their mind and keep them physically active. There's a lot to say about bonding and communication and building a strong bond with effective communication. So basic commands, so teaching puppies basic commands such as sit, stay, come, can help them feel safe and well behaved. Positive reinforcement training methods are generally most effective for puppies, whether that's toys or treats. Having chewing opportunities. So puppies do love to chew, and it's important to provide appropriate outlets for this behavior, such as chew toys and bones, to keep them directed on this as opposed to things like your shoes or your furniture. And scratching. Cats in particular need scratching posts as part of their basic needs. So make sure to have good sources of this, whether it's scratching trees or scratching mats. Otherwise, they will find somewhere else to scratch, such as curtains or sofas. And that's not necessarily their fault, but they need to, if they don't have alternative suitable sources. So scratching availability of materials is very, very important for you to provide. Behavioural aids, so these have been clinically proven and veterinary recommended. There are Feliway for cats. This is to reassure cats with a message of enhanced serenity. These are a pheromone product. And this holistic message helps cats feel more comfortable and secure in their home by providing reassurance as well as harmony between cats living together. And then we also have the same for dogs. So this is also a pheromonal product. And we have the collars for dogs, especially the Adaptil Junior, which is for your puppies. And it comforts puppies through the challenges of adoption and beyond. So it helps prevent crying at night, support for them staying home alone, so any type of separation anxieties they may be developing, loud noises or puppy car travel. It promotes better socialization and improves learning, especially when they're coming into your puppy training classes or your clinics. It will help them adapt a lot better to that environment and undertake learning a lot better as well. Don't forget to speak to the owners about parasites. So ticks in particular in the UAE is something that we need to be aware of. Fleas are not as common in the UAE, and ticks are known as ectoparasites, meaning external parasites, because they live outside of the host, so they live on the skin. Apart from their mouth parts, which become embedded inside the host in order to feed on their blood. Okay, and the main tick-borne disease that affects dogs is babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, and Lyme disease, which is far less common. And cats are also affected by ticks. So the only tick-borne disease that affects cats is hemobartonellosis, but it is not very common, also known to cause something called mycoplasma. And mycoplasma is a red blood cell parasite that can cause severe anemia. Fleas and ticks carry it once they've fed on an infected animal, and then they pass it on to cats when they bite or attach themselves. So mycoplasma is something that we do have in the UAE, and it may be underdiagnosed, but we do see a lot of anemia and suspected mycoplasma. Incorrect removal can result in the mouth parts of the tick, which are fixed firmly in the place using microscopic barbs remaining inside your cat and dog. And when it's left there, this can lead to infection. And tick attachment also can lead to skin irritation. And it's very important that when you are removing ticks, you use the right tool. So in this picture in the top right-hand corner, you can see this dog has a tick above its eye, and they're using a kitten, which is a type of tick remover, to make sure that they get underneath those microscopic barbs to remove the tick and all of it in whole, so that there isn't left behind any head parts that can cause an infection. So some of the treatments that are available for people to use, things such as Canny Shield or Fiprotec for dogs and cats, which will kill your ticks and prevent them from causing any further issues. Also, you have to discuss deworming. So for puppies, deworming should start at around 2 weeks of age, with additional treatments at 4, 6, 8, 10, and then 12 weeks of age. After that, monthly deworming is recommended until they reach about 6 months of age. Then after 6 months, it's recommended every 3 to 6 months. For kittens, deworming should start at around 3 weeks of age, with additional treatments at 5, 7, and 9 weeks. And then after that, monthly deworming is also recommended until they reach 6 months of age. And an adult cat should be dewormed at least twice a year or more if they are known to go outside and hunt. When discussing the worming, there are lots of different types of worms, from your roundworms, tapeworms, your hookworms and whipworms. In the UAE, the most common types of intestinal worms are going to be your roundworms and your tapeworms. And most of your broad spectrum wormers in clinical practice will cover for these types of worms. So this is something that you can educate the owners on, and also you can provide these deworming tablets to them, or actually administer them in the clinic for them and show them how they can do this at home. Don't forget to discuss nutrition. So these puppies and kittens are very young and they need very specific nutrition, and they have a very specific nutritional demand that is different to that of an adult cat and dog. So depending on their age, they may be so young that they need to be on puppy or kitten milk. And this is called baby cat milk or baby dog milk, and our start of life range by Royal Canin for nutrition. And it is the ideal substitute for mother's milk or complete nutrition or supplementation. And this can be important to give when maybe the mother isn't able to feed the puppies or kittens, or they've been abandoned, or they've simply been rehomed or been rescued at a very, very, very young age. Okay. And this is the complete diet from birth to 4 weeks of age. So we know that giving things like cows or goat's milk are not so nutritionally balanced for growing puppies and kittens. It's not for their intended species, and it's not optimal for their growth and development. Particularly, they can't really digest a lot of it because it's quite high in starch. So making sure that owners are aware they do have a young puppy and kitten, that they do need to feed them with a purpose-built puppy and kitten diet. Low in starch, as young kittens and puppies are still developing the digestive capacity for carbohydrates. And these also have DHA in there, which is necessary for cognitive or brain development, and also prebiotics, which promote growth and colonization of good bacteria as that gut does develop. And then we also have the mother and baby cat kitten. So this is the mother and baby cat is ideal for the period of weaning, so about 4 to 5 weeks of age up until 4 months. And it's the transition from milk to solid food. So this might be one of the diets that you will be recommending most often when you do see those puppy and kittens, if they're coming in for a puppy and kitten clinic and they're already over 4 weeks of age, hopefully, ideally. And the mother and baby cat in particular provides the energy they need for rapid growth period, and gives full nutritional support, but also their GI tract is immature. So the feed must be highly digestible with additional prebiotics to promote digestive health, which this diet does have. This diet is also recommended for feeding from the moment you know that the mother is pregnant, and also when she is lactating. And then when they get a little bit older, they can go on to something called kitten. And we know that kittens' gastrointestinal systems are not well developed during weaning and early growth stages. So highly digestible protein is needed. They need immune system support is so important at this time. Their vaccinations won't be effective until 9 weeks old and maternal immunity has started to wane. So it's a real risky period in a kitten's life. So immune system developing and antioxidants and prebiotics are added to the diet to support this development as well. And the slower growth rate and skeletal development are supported. So the correct calcium and phosphorus ratios are there to enable development of bare bones. We have the same for dogs. That's called mother and baby dog. And this is the complete diet from weaning up until 2 months of age. And we know puppies require an increase in all essential amino acids, as well as an increase in total protein compared to an adult. They also need a higher metabolizable energy and appropriate calcium and phosphorus ratio to support their growth as well. So this diet is also one you can give depending on the breed and the size they will be as adults. They are separated into mini, medium, maxi, and giant. So this is what you should be recommending to the owners when they are at the age of weaning, up until at least 2 months of age, and then they can go on to other types of puppy food as well. And then don't forget to discuss handling and grooming. So things like bathing. Of course, bathing removes dirt and debris. For most dogs, bathing frequency should be between once a month and once every 3 months. Of course, if they're getting dirty more sooner, then you'd have to do it more frequently. But always advise owners to be sure to use a shampoo formulated specifically for dogs. Try not to use things like Johnson's baby shampoo for humans. It's not the right pH balance often for that of a dog's skin, and sometimes can cause some problems. So get the right shampoos formulated specifically for dogs, and always use lukewarm water. Avoid bathing them too often. Frequent bathing can irritate the skin, damage hair follicles, and increase the risk of bacterial and fungal infections. Brushing removes dead hair from their coat, and it helps to prevent skin irritation and matting. And brushing can also reduce hair shedding. One thing to note about bathing, some people do opt to bathe their cats, and that's absolutely fine, but it's not as essential to bathe cats. They're very good at keeping themselves clean. They're meticulous in their cleaning and grooming activities. So it's not necessarily something you have to do very, very often, if at all. Some dogs will need to be brushed daily, while other dogs can be brushed once a month. Longer hair will require more frequent brushing to keep it healthy and shiny. So make sure that the owners have the right grooming tools available to really be effective at getting their coat in good condition. So if they have long hair, they need the right type of brush, and make sure they're not using harsh snagging brushes that can really hurt the skin. Particularly if they have mats, they should not be trying to brush these out. These may need to be removed via a professional groomer or with some sort of scissors or clippers. And nail trimming. Use specifically designed clippers for dogs and cats' nails that has a quick guard in there, so it takes into consideration how long their nails can be and helps prevent accidents like cutting the quick, and also reflects the curve of cats and dogs' nails in particular, unlike that of humans. There are a few grooming differences. So as we know, most dogs are easier to bathe and brush because they are not as sensitive as cats. And cats are more likely to get hairballs than dogs. So take that into consideration. They might need more frequent grooming. Dogs are more tolerant of being bathed. Cats are sensitive to water. So when owners are very keen to keep washing their cats, just tell them to bear that in mind. They might not be as compliant. Dogs need to be bathed more often than cats in general, which we've already mentioned. So dogs tend to get dirty faster when they go on walks, and cats don't tend to have this problem because they don't really go on walks, especially if they're indoor cats. And dogs don't groom as diligently as dogs. So cats are known as being fastidious groomers, spending up to 50% of their waking hours grooming themselves. They use their rough tongues to lick their fur, which helps remove loose hair and debris, distribute natural oils throughout their coat, and stimulate their blood flow. So cats and dogs do have different grooming behaviours. And so this is reflected in whether you have to bathe them, brush them, and keep them in a specific condition. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this presentation useful and valuable. And just remember, these are all the things that you need to discuss when you are giving your nursing clinics. It's a long list to go through, but it's very important for those new pet owners to know, and to also ensure that they are doing the best for their animals for the rest of their animals' lives. Thank you very much.